December 19, 1944. 06:23 hours. Woods outside Nouvelle, Belgium. On Aeropateria Claus Vendel's gloved fingers fumbled with the frozen pencil as he scribbled in his personal notebook, his breath forming clouds in the cramped interior of his Panther tank's turret. The Americans have a new hunter. We hear them but never see them. By the time we swing our turret, they are gone. 3 of our Tigers lost yesterday. Through his commander's cupola, Wendell glanced into the pre-dawn darkness of the Ardennes forest, where somewhere beyond the tree line, the 75th Tank Destroyer Battalion's M18 Hellcats were already shifting into position. What he didn't realize was that in exactly 17 minutes, his entire perception of armored warfare would be upended by an American vehicle that violated every principle of tank combat the Wehrmacht had refined over 5 years of war. The Panther's 75mm gun could penetrate any American tank at 2000 m. Its frontal armor could repel most Allied rounds. It represented the height of German engineering: heavy, powerful, methodical. Yet within 3 minutes of first contact, Wendell would see multiple German tanks destroyed by vehicles moving at speeds German armor couldn't dream of achieving even on paved roads. The Battle of the Bulge was entering its 4th day, and across the frozen forests of Belgium and Luxembourg, German tank crews were discovering a frightening truth: the Americans had built something that hunted unlike any armored vehicle in history. Not stronger, not heavier, just faster than anything they could imagine surviving in combat. The M18 Hellcat's origins began in December 1941, as America entered the war. While German tank doctrine emphasized overwhelming firepower and protection, producing 45-ton Panthers and nearly 70-ton King Tigers, American designers at General Motors chose a radically different direction, one that would unsettle German crews 3 years later. The Tank Destroyer Force, created under General Leslie McNair's directive on November 21, 1941, operated on a simple concept outlined in Field Manual FM-18-5, Seek, Strike, and Destroy. Speed and firepower were prioritized over armor. The M18, designated T-70 during development, would push this idea to an extreme that German engineers considered outright suicidal. Buick Motor Division in Flint, Michigan, not Grand Blanc, as sometimes mistaken for the nearby Sherman plant, received the contract in January 1942. Chief Engineer Joseph Roberts confronted requirements that seemed impossible: mount a 76mm high-velocity gun capable of destroying any German tank, maintain a low silhouette for concealment, and reach speeds over 50 miles per hour, all while staying under 20 tons. The solution defied conventional tank design. The M18's armor measured only 25.4mm at its thickest on the turret front and 12.7mm on the hull front, barely enough to stop heavy machine gun fire. A German 88mm round wouldn't just penetrate, it would pass straight through both sides. Mobility became everything, resulting in what historians later called the fastest-tracked armored fighting vehicle of World War II. The first M18 Hellcats arrived in Europe in early 1944. They initially saw combat in Italy with the 894th Tank Destroyer Battalion. The 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion became the first unit in the European theater to receive M18s in May 1944, landing at Utah Beach on July 13. But it was the Normandy breakout where German tank crews first confronted their future nightmare. On July 29, 1944, near Coutances, France, elements of German heavy tank battalions reported alarming contacts with American tank destroyers that vanished before they could return fire. After-action reports recorded enemy vehicles exhibiting speeds estimated at 80 km per hour over rough terrain, with total engagement times from first shot to disappearance being roughly 180 seconds. The calculations were simple and terrifying. A Panther turret required 60 seconds for a complete rotation. Its maximum speed was 34 miles per hour on roads, 15 miles per hour cross-country. The M18 Hellcat could accelerate from 0 to 30 miles per hour in 7 seconds, cruise at 55 miles per hour with the governor, 60 without, and sustain 26 miles per hour cross-country. In the 3 minutes it took a German crew to spot the threat, turn the turret, acquire a target, and fire, the Hellcat could relocate nearly 1.5 miles away. The fear wasn't irrational. The M18's 76mm M1A2 gun, although unable to penetrate Panther frontal armor with standard M62 APC-BC ammunition, could easily pierce the 40mm side armor at 1,500 m. With M93 HVAP tungsten core rounds rare and issued at only 1 or 2 per crew per month, penetration could reach 157 mm at 500 yards. The gun's muzzle velocity of 2,600 foot-pers meant the shell arrived before the sound of the shot. German doctrine emphasized methodical engagement, careful target acquisition, deliberate aiming, conservation of ammunition. Crews drilled extensively on fighting from static positions using terrain for hull down placement. The Panther and Tiger were designed for this doctrine. Heavily armored, powerful guns, slow but steady advancement. The Hellcat shattered every aspect of this training. M18 crews were taught at Camp Hood, Texas. Established specifically as the Tank Destroyer Tactical and Firing Center on 158-76 acres to never remain stationary for more than 30 seconds after firing. The motto "Speed is Life" became standard doctrine. Where German doctrine emphasized the decisive shot, American tank destroyer doctrine preached shoot and scoot. Between July 1943 and October 1944, Buick's Flint, Michigan plant produced exactly 257 M18 Hellcats, far fewer than the originally planned 8,986 vehicles. The production included 6 pilot models, an initial contract for 1,000 vehicles, and a final order of 157 units. Peak monthly production reached 267 units in November 1943. This production rate, while modest compared to Sherman tank output, still exceeded German Panther production. While Germany struggled to produce 90 Panthers monthly by late 1944, American factories had already completed the entire Hellcat production run. The disparity meant that while German crews knew each lost Panther or Tiger was essentially irreplaceable, American forces could rapidly replace any losses. The M18 featured a Wright R975 radial engine originally designed for aircraft. Early production vehicles, serial numbers 1 to 1,350, used the naturally aspirated R975C1, producing 350 horsepower. While later models, serial 1351 to 2507, received the supercharged R975C4, generating 400 horsepower beginning in March 1944. This power combined with the vehicle's 17.7 to 20-ton weight sources vary based on configuration created an exceptional power-to-weight ratio of 20 to 22.5 horsepower per ton compared to the Panther's 15 horsepower per ton. The Hellcat's hydroatic automatic transmission with torque converter allowed drivers to maintain maximum speed while maneuvering, a critical advantage over German tanks requiring manual shifting and clutch operation. The ground pressure of just 10.5 psi, less than many wheeled vehicles, meant Hellcats could traverse mud and snow that immobilized 57-ton Tiger is 15.2 psi ground pressure in 69.88-ton Tiger IIs. The breakout from Normandy in August 1944 provided the first large-scale demonstration of Hellcat doctrine during Operation Cobra beginning July 28, 1944. The 6,003rd Tank Destroyer Battalion, which had received M18s in October 1943 and landed at Utah Beach July 21 to 22, participated in the sweep through Brittany. The 74th and 75th Battalions, also equipped with M18, joined the rapid advance. Traditional tank warfare would have dictated careful covered approaches and sustained firefights. Instead, M18 crews executed what became known as rapid flanking attacks, using their superior speed to strike from unexpected directions before German turrets could traverse to meet the threat. The Battle of Aricourt, fought September 18 to 29, 1944, not October as sometimes misreported, near the Nancy bridgehead across the Moselle River, demonstrated the M18's potential when properly employed. The 704th Tank Destroyer Battalion attached to the 4th Armored Division's Combat Command faced Elements of the German 113th Panzer Brigade in conditions that should have favored the defenders. On September 19th, Lieutenant Edwin Leeper's platoon engaged German armor in heavy fog at extremely close range. Visibility limited to 30 feet in the first 5 minutes. His M18s destroyed 5 German tanks while losing just 1 vehicle. The engagement continued with 10 additional enemy tanks destroyed for the loss of 2 more M18. Captain Tom Evans earned the Distinguished Service Cross after personally manning a disabled M18's gun to destroy enemy panzers. The overall results at Araort were staggering. 39 German tanks destroyed for 4 M18 tanks destroyed and 3 damaged, a 5.6 to 1 kill ratio that validated the tank destroyer concept. The Battle of the Bulge in December 1944 became the Hellcat's most legendary proving ground. The 75th Tank Destroyer Battalion, described by General A.D. Bruce as the finest tank destroyer battalion yet trained, rushed to defend Bastonia, providing critical armored support for the 101st Airborne Division. On December 19 to 20, 1944, near Noville, M18s from both the 609th and 75th Tank Destroyer Battalions engaged elements of the 2nd Panzer Division. The 609th arrived first with Team Desri, with Lieutenant David K. Hoggins's platoon of 4 M18 achieving remarkable results. 1 vehicle knocked out 7 German tanks while another destroyed 5, losing only 1 M18 while destroying 14 enemy tanks total. The 7005th under Lieutenant Colonel Clifford D. Templeton reinforced late on December 19 with approximately 12 M18. The combined force helped destroy at least 30 German tanks over 2 days, inflicting 600 to 1,000 German casualties while achieving a crucial 48-hour delay. The 75th would later receive a Presidential Unit Citation for actions at Bastonia from December 18 to 27, 1944. On Christmas Day 1944 alone, the 75th destroyed 27 German tanks while losing 6 M18s, engaging the 15th Panzer Grenadier Division, maintaining their exceptional kill ratios, even in the most desperate fighting. Overall, during the Siege of Bastonia, the 75th destroyed approximately 40 German tanks for 6 M18 losses, achieving a 6.7 to 1 kill ratio. The Hellcat's advantages increased in adverse conditions. While German heavy tanks struggled in mud and snow, the M18's lightweight and low ground pressure allowed maintained mobility. During the Bulge's opening phase, heavy fog, grounded air support, and limited visibility to under 100 m German doctrine relied on long-range gunnery superiority now negated. Hellcat crews trained for close-range ambush at Camp Hood's Revolutionary Battle Conditioning Course thrived in these conditions. The M18's lightweight provided strategic mobility German heavy tanks couldn't match, while a King Tiger required Class 70 bridges, rare in Europe. The M18 could cross Class 24 bridges, basically any structure that could support a loaded truck. This advantage proved decisive during Rhine crossings. While German heavy tanks searched for intact bridges strong enough to support them, Hellcats crossed on temporary structures erected by combat engineers, while American factories built 25, 57 M18 Hellcats between July 1943 and October 1944. Germany struggled throughout the war to produce heavy tanks. Total Panther production reached approximately 6,000 vehicles, while only 492 King Tigers and 1,347 Tigers were ever built. The mathematics of industrial capacity were inescapable. For every Panther produced, America built 8 tank destroyers and tanks total. German tank crews faced not just superior tactics, but overwhelming numbers. American production included 49,234 M4 Shermans, 257 M18 Hellcats, 2324 M10 tank destroyers, 273 M36 tank destroyers, plus 88,410. Other armored vehicles. German tank crew training in 1944 emphasized methodical engagement, careful target acquisition, deliberate aiming, conservation of ammunition. By late 1944, veteran German tank crews were increasingly rare. Replacements received minimal training, sometimes just 2 weeks, before facing combat. American Hellcat crews, conversely, received extensive training at Camp Hood, later Fort Hood, Texas. The Tank Destroyer Schools program included 17 weeks of intensive training with emphasis on speed, mobility, and initiative. The facility commanded initially by Lieutenant Colonel, later Brigadier General Andrew D. Bruce, could train 100,000 soldiers simultaneously, with 28 battalions and 8 groups in various stages of preparation. Crews practiced high-speed firing, rapid displacement, and coordinated attacks until these became instinctive. The Revolutionary Battle Conditioning Course, originally called the Tank Hunting Course, became the first U.S. Army training to employ live fire overhead, with trainees spending a full week in simulated combat conditions. By late 1944, American tank destroyer doctrine had evolved from initial concepts to proven combat techniques. FM-18-5. Published in June 1942 stated, "There is but one battle objective of tank destroyer units, the destruction of hostile tanks." General Bruce later clarified that seek meant vigorous reconnaissance, strike meant destruction through gunfire rather than charging, and destroy meant elimination through superior tactics. Combat experience modified these concepts. North African battles taught that pure offensive charges were suicidal. Instead, aggressive spirit, combined with stealth and deception, became the cornerstone of successful tank destroyer employment. M18 crews developed wolf-pack tactics. 3 or 4 Hellcats operating in coordinated but independent attacks, communicating by radio to create overlapping fields of fire while maintaining constant movement. By war's end, M18 Hellcat units had achieved remarkable combat statistics. The Army Historical Foundation documents 526 total enemy armored vehicle kills, 498 in Europe, 17 in Italy, and 11 in the Pacific, with approximately 216 minutes and 18 seconds lost to enemy fire in the European theater. This produced an overall kill-to-loss ratio of 2.4 to 1, 4 to 1, 2.3 to 1. In Europe specifically, the highest of any U.S. tank or tank destroyer in World War II. Individual unit achievements often exceeded these averages. The 63rd Tank Destroyer Battalion destroyed upwards of 90 enemy armored fighting vehicles. The 74th achieved similar numbers, with their Air Accord engagement alone accounting for 39 kills. The 75th's performance at Bastonia, 40 tanks destroyed for 6 lost, demonstrated sustained excellence. The 6,001st Tank Destroyer Battalion achieved the highest documented ratio at nearly 23 to 1. Loss analysis revealed that 40 to 50% of M18 casualties resulted from enemy tanks and anti-tank guns exploiting the vehicle's minimal armor, while 25 to 35% stemmed from mechanical breakdowns. Remaining losses came from infantry anti-tank weapons, artillery, and mines. The fundamental difference between German and American armored vehicle design philosophy becomes clear when comparing specifications. The Panther weighed exactly 44.8 to 45 tons with 80 mm frontal armor sloped at 55 degrees, effective approximately 140 mm. The Tiger Y weighed 57 tons with 100 mm vertical frontal armor. The King Tiger reached 69.8 tons with 150 mm sloped frontal armor and 180 mm turret armor. Against this, the M18 Hellcat weighed just 17.7 to 20 tons with armor ranging from 12.7 mm on the hull to 25.4 mm on the turret front, thinner than some German armored cars. Yet, this apparent vulnerability enabled the speed that became its primary defense. At 500 m.a. Hellcat moving perpendicular at 40 miles per hour would cross a Tiger's gun arc in 4.5 seconds. Faster than the gunner could track with manual traverse after hydraulic failure, a common combat occurrence. Beyond speed, the M18 demonstrated superior mechanical reliability compared to German heavy tanks. The right R975 radial engine, derived from proven aircraft designs, started reliably even in sub-zero conditions. German tank crews using diesel engines requiring careful warm-up procedures couldn't understand how Hellcats could start instantly and accelerate immediately. The Panthers' sophisticated transmission, while technically advanced, proved fragile under combat conditions. Final drive failures plagued the design throughout its service life. The Tiger II's complexity meant that more were lost to mechanical failure than enemy action. Meanwhile, the M18's simplified design, using proven automotive components wherever possible, ensured consistent operational readiness. American logistical superiority amplified the M18's effectiveness. While German tanks often sat idle for lack of fuel, spare parts, or ammunition, Hellcat units maintained high operational rates through efficient supply chains. The famous Red Ball Express and similar logistics operations ensured consistent fuel deliveries, while standardized parts meant easy field maintenance. German forces by late 1944 faced chronic fuel shortages. Operation Watch on the Rhine, the German Ardennes offensive, partially aimed to capture Allied fuel dumps because German supplies couldn't sustain prolonged operations. This fuel situation meant German tanks often fought defensively from static positions exactly where the mobile Hellcat held maximum advantage. Every M18 carried both radio and intercom systems that worked reliably. STR-508 or STR-528 radio sets providing consistent communication. German tanks, especially by late 1944, often operated with degraded or non-functional communications, relying on signal flags or pre-battle planning. This seemingly minor detail had major tactical implications. Hellcat platoon coordinated attacks in real time, adjusting to German responses instantly. When 4 Hellcats attacked from different directions, they operated as a single organism through radio coordination. German tanks, often fighting in communication isolation, couldn't match this flexibility. Before the Hellcat's legendary performance in Northwest Europe, the Italian campaign provided German forces with their first warnings. In May 1944, during the breakout from Anzio, the 894th Tank Destroyer Battalion's Hellcats faced elements of the Hermann Göring Panzer Division. The terrain, rolling hills with vineyards and stone walls, should have neutralized the M18's speed advantage. Instead, it amplified their psychological impact. The Hellcats used their ability to accelerate up 30-degree slopes at speeds German tanks couldn't achieve on flat ground, creating an illusion of omnipresence by appearing at multiple points along radial lines in rapid succession. This early demonstration of Hellcat capabilities went largely unheeded by German high command, who remained focused on the Eastern Front where most German armor was committed. Winter 1944-45 proved that the Hellcat's advantages actually increased in adverse conditions. The M18's wide tracks and lightweight, producing just 10.5 psi ground pressure, allowed movement through snow that trapped heavier vehicles. German Tigers and Panthers, already struggling with mechanical reliability, found their mobility further reduced by winter conditions. During the Battle of the Bulge, Hellcat crews exploited these conditions expertly. They used their speed to race through areas where German heavy tanks bogged down, appearing behind German lines where heavy armor was thought impossible. This mobility in poor conditions contributed significantly to the successful defense of Bastonia. German forces attempted various counter-tactics against the Hellcat threat. Updated tactical manuals recommended. Immediate smoke deployment when M18s were identified, essentially blinding themselves in hopes the threat would pass. Other desperate measures included welding additional track links to side armor ineffective against 76mm rounds and creating deliberate ambushes with hidden anti-tank guns. Nothing worked consistently. The Hellcat's combination of speed, firepower, and tactical flexibility proved insurmountable with available German resources. The vehicle's very presence altered German behavior. Commanders became reluctant to commit armor without extensive reconnaissance, sacrificing initiative and momentum. In March 1945, near Remagen, M18s from the 656th Tank Destroyer Battalion crossed the captured Lidnorf Bridge. While it was too damaged for heavier vehicles, they established a screen that destroyed 11 German tanks attempting to approach the bridge, including 2 King Tigers that couldn't maneuver quickly enough in the confined terrain. This action demonstrated the strategic value of the M18's lightweight. While German heavy tanks required specific routes and specially reinforced bridges, Hellcats could use any crossing that supported truck traffic, appearing in impossible locations behind German lines. April 1945 saw the Ruhr Pocket become a massive trap for German Army Group B. The 893rd Tank Destroyer Battalion's Hellcats conducted what historians consider exemplary tank destroyer operations, racing through collapsing German lines at speeds approaching 60 mph on cleared autobahns, appearing deep in German rear areas before commanders knew the front had been penetrated. These final operations demonstrated the M18's concept brought to full maturity. Speed as weapon, mobility as armor. Surprise as primary tactic. German defensive positions designed to stop deliberate attacks by heavy tanks proved useless against vehicles that simply raced around them at highway speeds. Post-war analysis by U.S. Army historians validated the M18 concept despite its limitations. The 76mm gun's inability to penetrate Panther or Tiger frontal armor with standard ammunition forced reliance on flanking attacks. Missions where the vehicle's speed became essential. With standard M62 APC-BC rounds achieving only 93mm penetration at 500 yards and scarce HVAP rounds, crews had to close to suicidal ranges for frontal engagements against German heavy tanks. Yet the combat record speaks definitively. 526 confirmed kills against 216 combat losses produced the highest kill-to-loss ratio of any American armored vehicle in World War II. This success came not from superior firepower or protection, but from revolutionary employment of speed and mobility combined with superior crew training. The M18 Hellcat represented more than a vehicle. It embodied a completely different conception of armored warfare. While Germany perfected the tank as breakthrough weapon and mobile fortress, America created something new. The tank destroyer as pure hunter. The tank destroyer force's motto, seek, strike, and destroy, proved prophetic. By war's end, American tank destroyer battalions claimed over 11,000 enemy vehicles destroyed in total with Hellcat units, achieving the highest kill ratios. The doctrine emphasized that tank destroyers were not tanks and shouldn't fight like tanks. They were hunters that struck from ambush and vanished. Beyond tactical success, the Hellcat achieved strategic effects. German armored reserves, instead of concentrating for offensive operations, were increasingly held back to guard against tank destroyer raids. The mere presence of Hellcat units in a sector could freeze German armored movement for hours while commanders sought confirmation of their locations. During the Ardennes offensive, intercepted German communications revealed commanders requesting verification that no Hellcats were present before committing reserves. Hours were lost to reconnaissance, momentum sacrificed to caution. The Offensive that was supposed to split Allied forces was partially paralyzed by fear of vehicles weighing less than half a Panther. The 257 Hellcats built represented American industrial philosophy, not perfection, but practical efficiency. While Germany built 6,000 Panthers over 3 years, struggling with quality control and component shortages, Buick produced all M18 in just 15 months using proven components and simplified construction. German engineers, when examining captured M18s, noted the apparent crudity, functional welds rather than perfect joints, armor plate showing tool marks, interior ergonomics seemingly accidental. Yet this crude vehicle consistently destroyed German tanks built with watchmaker precision. The difference lay in design philosophy. Germany built engineering monuments while America built practical tools. Behind the statistics lay human tragedy. On both sides, young German tankers, many still teenagers by 1945, faced an enemy that negated everything they'd been taught. Their carefully maintained Panthers and Tigers, representing the peak of German engineering, burned just as readily when struck by Hellcat rounds fired from ambush. American crews, while suffering far fewer losses, carried their own burdens. The speed that saved them also meant striking without warning, often giving German crews no chance to surrender or escape. The minimal armor meant that when M18s were hit, catastrophic losses often resulted. Though the open-top turret design actually improved crew survival rates to over 80% compared to just 35% for German heavy tank crews. The M18 Hellcat's influence extended beyond World War II. Post-war armies studied its employment, recognizing that mobility could trump protection in certain circumstances. Modern military doctrine's emphasis on shoot and scoot, rapid displacement and mobility as survival technique all trace routes to M18 employment in 1944-45. Today at Fort Moore, formerly Fort Benning, a restored M18 Hellcat stands at the Armor School entrance. Its plaque commemorates it as the fastest armored fighting vehicle of World War II and proof that American ingenuity and mass production could defeat sophisticated enemy tanks through speed and tactical innovation. The final accounting of the Hellcat's impact: production total manufactured 257, production period July 1943 to October 1944, 15 months. Peak production 267 units November 1943. Unit cost $57,500. $1 1943. Production location: Buick Division, Flint, Michigan. Performance: maximum speed 55 miles per hour. Governed 60 miles per hour. Ungoverned. Acceleration 0 to 30 miles per hour 7 seconds. Range 100 to 105 miles. Power or weight ratio 20 to 22.5 horsepower per ton. Ground pressure 10.5 psi. Combat record: enemy vehicles destroyed 526 confirmed. M18s lost to enemy fire 216, overall kill ratio 2.4 to 1. European theater ratio 2.3 to 1. Comparative German tank specifications: Panther 44.8 to 45 tons 15 horsepower per ton 34 miles per hour maximum. Tiger I 57 tons 100 mm frontal armor 1347 produced. Tiger 269.88 tons 150 mm frontal armor 492 produced. The supreme irony of the Hellcat story is that German doctrine created the conditions for its success by building increasingly heavy tanks, Panthers, Tigers, King Tigers. Germany created slow, road-dependent targets ideal for Hellcat tactics. Had Germany continued developing lighter, more agile tanks, the Hellcat's advantages would have been reduced. Every additional ton added to German armor made them more exposed to American tank destroyers. The quest for near-invulnerable super tanks produced machines that couldn't adapt to high-speed warfare. In building moving fortresses, Germany became susceptible to opponents who fought like cavalry racing vehicles with guns that struck and disappeared before retaliation was possible. The M18 Hellcat demonstrated that victory doesn't demand the finest equipment, only the appropriate equipment used correctly. German crews in their impressive Panthers and Tigers were defeated by American crews in machines that appeared unbelievably fragile. It remains one of history's great illustrations of doctrine triumphing over technology. Military historian Stephen J. Zoga described the M18 as poorly balanced, noting its success came from the discipline and skill of its crews rather than from its flawed design. Yet this view overlooks a vital truth: the supposedly poor balance, extreme speed at the expense of armor, was exactly what enabled the groundbreaking tactics that produced the highest kill-to-loss ratio of any American armored vehicle in World War II. For German tank crews in 1944-45, 3 minutes was all they had. 3 minutes from the first sound of high-revving engines to the impact of 76mm shells. 3 minutes to identify the threat, rotate their turret, acquire a target, and fire, while the Hellcat was already sprinting to its next position at 55 miles per hour. 3 minutes that typically ended with their tank burning while the Hellcat disappeared into the distance hunting its next target. The Hellcat proved that in modern warfare, speed doesn't just kill. It makes brute strength meaningless. The German crews who survived those minutes learned a lesson that would reshape armored doctrine: sometimes the best armor is simply not being where the enemy aims. Sometimes the most effective gun is the one firing from a place the enemy does not anticipate. Sometimes the greatest victory comes not from constructing the strongest tank, but from creating the correct tank for the battlefield you actually face. In those 3 minutes lay the divide between outdated thinking and modern strategy, between fighting the previous war and the present one, between perfection and practicality. The M18 Hellcat, lightly armored, outgunned on paper, dismissed by some as poorly engineered, achieved what German supertanks could not: battlefield superiority through speed, skill, and innovative employment. For German tank crews confronting M18 Hellcats, 3 minutes was a lifetime. For many, it was the only lifetime they had left.